Hi, we have Nora Rodden with us today from Nervana. Um, really glad to have you come join us at the Living Fun podcast. Nora, why don't you just go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and Nirvana?
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm happy to be here. So I am CEO of Nervana, Nervana, and Nervana is a new company that I'm really personally very passionate about. It's delivering neuroplastic symptom coaching to people in a mobile app. So, long story short, and I'm happy to dive into wherever is most interesting to you, but this all started when I was at Cornell University. I was an undergrad there, and my senior year, I was unfortunately hit by a car. So I had really bad back pain for the 5 years that followed. I was technically diagnosed with spinal stenosis, little microfractures in the back. I also had a concussion, was rushed to a trauma center. So it was a pretty significant accident in college. And I never was able to fully recover. Like since then, I had 3 or 4 times a week, I would go to chiropractor appointments, acupuncture, physical therapy. Got so bad that I was also starting to get steroid injections in my back. And I did a procedure called nerve ablation, where they burned the nerves in my back, yet I was still experiencing pain. So in hindsight, that was, one of the first clues of, okay, if I've literally burned the nerves in my back, but I'm not getting better and I'm still feeling pain in my back, could the pain be coming from somewhere else? But I didn't know that at the time. Fast forward a few years, I was living and working in New York City, healthcare investment banking, and then I was at Roivant Sciences and biotech. And while I was there, I still had my back pain. I was just managing it. And then I also started to have chronic GI issues. So I was officially diagnosed with SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And it was kind of the same thing. Like I was inundated with appointments and trying to get better and constantly looking for success stories and took all the antibiotics, standard of care. Nothing really worked. I was still just having unpredictable bloating. And then finally, the gamut is when I went to business school. I went to Harvard Business School. I got a Master's of Science in Biotech and an MBA. And while I was there for the first time, I also started to have insomnia for like a full year. Went to all of the Harvard doctors, and nobody was really able to help. So all of these different chronic symptoms I thought were very separate until in business school I found a poster that was all about, healing your back pain through a mind-body approach. I didn't know what that was. I'd never heard of it before, but I enrolled in this clinical trial being really desperate. And it basically just taught me about the mind and the body being so connected. And through somatic tracking exercises, where you're really just leaning into your body and learning that signals like pain all come from your head and can be as a result of your nervous system just being stuck in a fight or flight response was really transformative for me. And within a few weeks, I completely healed not only my back pain, but also my GI issues and also the insomnia. So it was the only thing that really worked for me. And that's what we're bringing to people at Nirvana.
It's amazing because it can be so complicated who to speak to, what test to go for.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
nerve ablation, that's
Yeah.
probably a pretty heavy decision to make. Tell me, so how did you and your partner meet, and what was it that brought you together?
Yeah. So my amazing co-founder, Miles, he's the CTO of Nirvana. I was working here in San Francisco in biotech. I was working at a genetic medicines company, but just feeling really passionate about what had helped me recover and just felt like there weren't enough resources out there. There weren't enough programs, apps, digitized information or training programs. There's a lot of amazing books, but not a lot of like tech-enabled program or service that can really help people very easily go through what I went through in that clinical trial. So I actually think I posted on Y Combinator's co-founder matching platform and was like, I have no idea what to build here. I didn't even think of myself as an entrepreneur. I went to business school and it never crossed my mind that I would be a founder. And I just posted a little bit about it and said, this is what happened to me. I'd really love to ideate with someone on how can we fill a gap here? How can we help, fill this white space where there really is a need for this type of therapy, this type of treatment for many people who are stuck in this cycle of chronic symptoms. And to be honest, I wasn't really that impressed or excited by the people that were reaching out. And so I kind of gave up on the idea after a few weeks. I was like, okay, I'm just not going to find someone on this platform, maybe a different time. And then Miles reached out, and him and I both were very, very similar in our passion. He's had his own chronic pain journey and has had some relief in this space by working in the mind body space. And he was a former founder, exited his last company, and an engineer. And so we just started talking and we started ideating like, what could we do? What could we build? And talked to many clinicians in this space, many potential customers in this space, and just started doing our research. And that's how we landed on working together and building Nirvana.
That resource finder is that's a great
Yeah.
idea. Uh, it's a great networking tool. Um, so one of the experiences I had many years ago when I healed my own back through this similar approach, I wanted to share it with the world, you know?
Yeah.
And I would go up to some friends when they'd say, "Oh, I got a bad back or my neck is
Yeah.
hurting me."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, did you hear about this? Or did you hear about that?"
Yeah.
And I stopped getting invited to parties a little bit, so there's a way and an approach that works. And but one of the common feedbacks I got was, "Are you trying to say I have something wrong with my
Right.
mind? Like,
Right.
is there something wrong with me?" And I'm like, "No, not at all.
Yeah.
I'm just simply saying that this is what helped me." Have you
Right.
ever had that similar kind of experience?
Absolutely. I mean, even myself, when I first enrolled in the clinical trial at Harvard and I was really, really desperate and quite open and receptive at that point to trying anything, I was really defensive. When I heard that as well, I was like, I literally was hit by a car. Like I got really defensive about my accident and was like, this isn't like some mind game that I'm playing with myself. And I think it's, tough to change people's perspectives about that, but that's really what we're trying to do at Nirvana is bring this approach in a way that is not going to make people defensive because we're not saying that you're making your symptoms up. Like you can have a real accident or trauma event or something that has deliberately caused your symptoms. But after your body has healed, after the underlying like tissues have healed, your fractures have healed, broken bones have healed, but you're still experiencing pain or other symptoms, then what's fueling the fire is often like a brain body miscommunication or a nervous system that is still trying to protect you. Because that's how we evolved. Like for me, it was super helpful to learn about just how humans evolved and why things evolved the way that they did. And a lot of our nervous system, our sympathetic nervous system is there to protect you, to help you like run from a tiger. And so thinking back to those times, that's when it became a lot more, it was easier for me to understand and to like give it a try because it was like, okay, now I understand how the brain and body work. Let me give it a try to start to retrain the nervous system so that I can believe that my body is actually safe. There's really no danger here. And for many, many people, including myself, and it sounds like with you too, like your symptoms can go away if they are neuroplastic, meaning they are brain generated.
Yeah, that's great. You know, I first learned about this, as I said, many years ago, and it really did help me heal my back pain. And to this day, I don't have it. And part of it was
Yeah.
letting go of the story
Yeah.
that I had built up about how I got the back pain in the first place.
Yep.
For me, it was
Yep.
playing tennis, and I recreated going out and playing tennis. And the first hour,
Yeah.
I was crying. I was in so much pain, and I let go of it. it was an amazing cathartic experience. Of course, I'm not suggesting that you go out and get into another
Yeah.
car accident.
Get
You
hit by a
know,
car on purpose.
right? Let's not do that. But do you feel like this works for? You've talked about physical ailments, and you've also talked about like challenges with certain foods. Uh,
Hmm.
you know, is there a limit to where this can work?
It's a great question, and it's something that we've thought about too with the app. Do we pick certain symptoms to target, or do we be really broad and inclusive? We're still learning. We're really early in the process, but we're going out broad. And that's because exactly this type of, question or conversation is really all chronic symptoms that don't have an underlying structural injury. So the Association for the Treatment of Neuroplastic Symptoms is a leading kind of nonprofit with a consortium of clinicians that are really pioneers in this space, one of which is a clinical advisor for us. They define it very specifically. Like this type of approach can work for you if you meet one of two criteria. One is you don't have an underlying structural injury. So you don't have, cancer or an aneurysm or a broken bone. Like if you don't have an underlying injury and you've had symptoms that have lasted longer than 6 months, but your body's healed, your tests are coming up normal, then that is likely a nervous system type of issue, and that can be retrained. Or you do have an underlying issue, but you've tried standard of care multiple times. You've gone to your doctors, your medical team, and you're not improving the way that they would expect you to. Those both qualify. So while I think what's really novel about this space is using this kind of psychology-based approach for physical symptoms like pain, and that's because that's just so not understood or utilized in especially America. I personally have found relief for insomnia as well, which is not really like a physical symptom, but for me, it is still a root cause of, your nervous system is afraid and stuck in fight or flight and trying its best to protect you, but nobody really teaches us how to let go of that. They're just giving us more like sleep hygiene tools or tracking tools. And from my experience having insomnia, I found that that was just adding to the pressure. It was adding to the pressure of going to bed has now become an Olympic sport. I really have to make this night, the best night of sleep, or else tomorrow is going to be bad. Like that's just more fear and pressure. So in my view, insomnia is still part of this, but we do think the novel concept is really about the physical symptoms.
The idea of moving forward, many people are challenged with burnout, um,
Hmm.
too much stress in their lives, fear of taking that next step in their life, whatever that next step is. Do you feel
Right.
like this program is also for that type of person as well?
I think absolutely. I mean, we had an early prototype where we tested Nirvana with a handful of people, and some people found really great results when their symptom was really anxiety or stress. So it wasn't really a physical symptom. Now, I'll just be transparent that that's not how Nirvana is designed. It is designed for chronic symptoms. It's using evidence-based approaches that have shown efficacy in clinical trials for back pain, for digestive issues. So it's really more for physical symptoms, but that doesn't mean that you can't get benefit if you are just experiencing stress and you're not noticing that manifest in, a physical way.
Tell us a little bit more about some of the research that you're alluding to and what you learned from it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the clinical trial that I was in personally was called Psychophysiologic Symptom Relief Therapy, PSRT. And essentially, that trial was really bringing the emotions into play. It was saying that your body and brain can't really distinguish between a physical threat, like again, a tiger's chasing you in the wild back in caveman days, or an emotional threat, like you're really, really stressed about work and an upcoming, promotion that you're worried about. Like those two things are still processed in your body as just stress. And so what I learned in that trial was it taught me about that. It taught me that emotions were really no different than a physical trauma or threat. And then it also went one step further of trying to get you deliberately release those subconscious emotional stressors. And I remember in the trial, I was actually very convinced that I was not stressed. I was like, I don't know what they're talking about. I'm not stressed. I'm here in graduate school. I'm super privileged. It was COVID time and I was having a great time in school. So I felt very like lucky. And even though I did have these chronic symptoms, I never really like allowed myself to feel I didn't want to feel like a victim. Like I didn't want to feel like I was actually struggling. And so I really suppressed a lot of emotions. And through this clinical trial, there was a lot of journaling, which I was like, really? I'm going to heal my back pain from a car accident from journaling? That's ridiculous. But I did it because, again, when you're desperate, you're willing to try anything. And so I did it. We basically journaled like a few times a week, and you would journal really, 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 really fast to try to get like all of your subconscious out there, which I don't know if you've ever tried that, but it really does work. Like if you journal very fast, such that your hand gets a cramp, then you're not really thinking before you're writing. So your brain and body are just kind of like dumping things out on the page, and that can really help you release anything that's stored inside. So that was really the focus of that clinical trial, PSRT. And the results were really astounding. I think it was like 66% of people in that clinical trial were completely pain-free after a few weeks of that therapy. And these are people with chronic back pain that had tried everything for years. That was a small trial. It was a pilot study. It since has been replicated in larger and larger sample sizes of, 100 plus people. It's also been replicated in long COVID, because that is also known to be a neuroplastic symptom or having some sort of neuroplastic component. And then there's also other evidence-based approaches. Pain reprocessing therapy is quite similar, but there's a little bit less of an emphasis on the emotions and more of an emphasis on teaching your body safety through a lens of, somatic tracking, leaning into your pain rather than away from it. So it's a little bit more about that than it is emotions. And there's also something called emotional awareness and expression therapy, which is, as it suggests in the name, more leaning towards emotions. But honestly, all of those evidence-based methodologies all come from the same root that your mind and your body are connected, and many chronic symptoms are as a result of protective signals that are no longer necessary. So it's important to teach your body safety both from the physical side and from the emotional side. And we leverage all of those in Nirvana.
Great. So I came across Dr. Sarno's work, I guess, 30 something years ago, and it
Mhm.
was so super helpful. Um, why do you think it's not more well established in our standard, you know, approach to healthcare?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think, unfortunately, in the US, our healthcare system has really evolved to help people with structural injuries. Like if you have a broken bone, then doctors can really help. If you have an acute injury, there are therapeutics out there. If you have a known underlying genetic disease. I mean, I've worked in genetic medicines companies and rare and in developing gene therapies. There's a path forward there. I'm not saying it's easy, but that's kind of what the healthcare system has evolved to do. If you're somebody who has experienced chronic symptoms for a long time, then you'll know that the healthcare system can fail. You go to doctor after doctor after doctor after doctor, and there's not really like a holistic view of what's going on in your life. Like, if you have migraines every time you're with your family on vacation, but you don't have migraines when you're by yourself, like that inconsistency, that's usually not something that doctors ask. They're not trying to ask about like the environment or the context in which your symptoms arise. And so I think part of it is just medical training. I come from some doctors in my family, and so I really love and appreciate everything that they do. But I think the training is really meant to tackle like structural injuries rather than chronic symptoms that might be caused by something else. So that's part of it. Another one is I do think there's a little bit of like a human behavior component of you know, you're kind of you grow up with, you have a headache, it doesn't go away, take an Advil. So I think there's a little bit of a component of like, let me just, do something really quickly to ease my pain. And that's actually what we're trying to leverage with Nirvana. Like, we're not asking people to really change behavior. We're just asking them to learn about themselves very easily every day and kind of check things off their to-do list in a way that hopefully provides that like dopamine hit that you would get when you're on TikTok or something like that. So I think like the delivery of this approach also has been lacking, and so I'm hoping that we can plug that gap.
You know, earlier this year, I had a bit of a health challenge. I got COVID and pneumonia. I think it was pneumonia first, then COVID.
Wow.
And I took some antibiotics, which I don't typically do. And it just created this sort of lack of health that I was not able
Yeah.
to overcome. And it just stayed
Yeah.
with me. It lingered for many months. And you know, I tried to be that person that advocated for myself and bringing different doctors together,
Yeah.
uh, and getting different tests done. Part of the challenge is one doctor didn't know the information that another doctor had.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, EMRs don't always, they can be very siloed. Uh, that's another challenge for another day to talk about.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
um, you know, all of a sudden I became, I started going to Dr. Google and Dr. Chat and
Right.
asking what they felt and using
Mhm.
that as a vehicle to bring it all together. But then you start seeing videos about different kinds of cancer and different this and different,
Right.
and all of a sudden, like, huh. So it's taking me further away from health because I'm getting more anxious about,
Yeah.
well, if it's this, and this symptom. Uh, so do you feel like your Nirvana can be a help in that situation where people don't really know exactly? You mentioned 6 months and greater. Mine was like
Yeah.
3 months, but still felt very
Mhm.
much like that.
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, there's like a lot of noise out there, and I speak from experience. Like, I was spending so much time on Reddit and YouTube and Google. This is before ChatGPT was out, but I was spending so much time just like consuming information, and it would almost like backfire because I would think to myself, well, oh, there's this one antibiotic that's like not readily available, but that's helped one person in this one success story. So let me go and like pursue that. But once again, I was like putting a lot of my hope into this external thing that I was hoping would help cure my disease. But I think it was really helpful to pause and in that clinical trial really learn about like what could be the root cause of all of it. So yes, I do think Nirvana distills information for you, really synthesizes it in a digestible way where it's really bite-sized. We're taking evidence-based approaches. We're working with amazing clinicians who have each treated and seen tremendous success in their own patients, thousands of them, and all of that information on success, like that's not readily available on the internet. It's in the brains of these clinicians. So that's what we kind of extract and put together a program that you can track your symptoms, but you can also track what did I journal about a few weeks ago and what was on my mind then, and kind of see the correlation between that and your symptom and be your own detective, but also in a non-overwhelming way because there's so much information out there.
Great. So tell us, as let's say I'm a potential user of the Nirvana
Yeah,
app. Tell me what my experience might be like, both in terms of time frame,
yeah,
commitment, and what can I expect to have happen. Assuming, I think the most important thing is assuming the person is open to something different.
absolutely. Yeah, and that's, I mean, from a customer segmentation standpoint, like we really want to market this as a program for people who have tried everything under the sun. If you just started to experience migraines like a few weeks ago, you are not a good candidate for Nirvana. You have to be receptive and open-minded, right? Like I don't want to convince the person. I want them to be receptive, open-minded, and unfortunately, that's typically the person that has tried everything, that has spent a lot of money, that's exhausted. I've been there, my co-founder's been there. It sounds like you've been there, and many of your listeners will have been there. Those are the people that we want to try this because we truly believe that this can help them address many, if not all, of their, root cause issues if their symptoms are neuroplastic. So what a user would expect is one, they would download the app on the App Store. So that's Nirvana with an E, Nervana. And they would download the app. They would go through a questionnaire developed by clinicians and widely used that helps them rule out structural injury. It's not a diagnosis by any means, and everyone should go and talk to their doctor and their medical team. But essentially, it gives you some clues on how do you know if you might have a neuroplastic symptom? Like, what are some common signs? Some of which we've already talked about on this podcast, but things like your symptoms tend to move around in your body physically, like sometimes your left arm's hurting and sometimes it's your left shoulder, or it's you notice that the triggers are inconsistent. So that happened a lot with my digestive issues, and it was infuriating that I'd be on these restrictive diets and I would still get bloating, and then I would tell myself, okay, it's the onion and garlic. And then I would try onion and garlic one day and realize I didn't have any issues. And so that inconsistency is also another sign that this could be a neuroplastic or nervous system issue. So users will go through that and then they'll talk to their AI coach. So their AI Nirvana coach is, conversational AI. They'll tell the coach a little bit about their history, what they've done to try and treat their symptoms. And then they will log into Nirvana, and each session is really bite-sized. It's intentionally simple and focused, where they basically have 3 or 4 tasks that session. And so they'll go through their tasks, which are bite-sized education that all comes from the clinical methodologies we talked about earlier, distilled in a way that's digestible and customized to that user's unique symptom. And then they will go through a nervous system regulation exercise, some of which have been recorded by these awesome clinicians that treat patients every day. And so these can be things like meditation, breath work, but this isn't, a wellness app for anybody. So they're really focused on chronic symptoms. So they're really customized there. And then users will talk to their conversational AI coach for about 5 minutes to reinforce that education, ask questions. You can bring up any skepticism you have and have somebody to really talk to you and coach you in the way that I received coaching in my clinical trial. And then finally, they will journal that day. So there's a journaling prompt each session, helps you go a little bit deeper with your own emotions. And when you're done, you're done. We don't let users kind of breeze through the program. We want them to learn 10 to 15 minutes a session and then take a pause and go live your life and try to implement the tools and techniques you've learned in your day to day. We also have this awesome insights tab, which you mentioned advocating for yourself and bringing doctors together. We basically collect evidence in the background of things that the user has said, like, hey, you mentioned in this reflection question that your migraines are really triggered when you are at work but not on vacation. That's strong evidence that your symptom is neuroplastic. And honestly, the penicillin for neuroplastic symptoms, the way you get better is to have conviction internally that your body is actually safe. So by building that evidence list in the background, you are getting better. You're realizing that, okay, this might not be an underlying disease. Maybe I'm safe. And that is really core to retraining your nervous system. And you can also share and export those insights to your medical team to advocate for yourself and say, hey, look, this is what I've been working on with Nirvana. I'd really love for you to take a look at this. It's like a 1-page summary. And you can also see how your symptoms have progressed.
I like that because bringing it to your practitioner or somebody who's serving as the main focal point for your healthcare in a
Yeah.
1-page, digestible, so they can understand, here's some of the other things that you're working on. Uh, for myself, I know that my health got better, and thank God it got better in part because as I ruled certain things out and as
Yeah.
I saw more practitioners, I guess there was a bit of, a relief, almost like a placebo effect of, okay, it's nothing too major, and this too shall pass.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
let go of that, some of these symptoms I was feeling. It was kind
yep.
of magic. Um, so super. So tell me, just from just a few more things from a business perspective, where are you in your business model? When can, patients start to, or
Yeah.
customers start working with you, and where are you in the sort of the fundraising journey?
Yes, yeah. So when this is released, the app is available on the App Store, so people can go and access it there. Nirvana Chronic Symptom Coach. And so yeah, we're really excited to release it to our wait list first. So those are going to be kind of the early members. We're going to give them a significant discount. And yeah, we're really excited to hear people's feedback. We're building alongside users. And so we really want to have that close iteration and communication so that we can make the app better, more personalized, and really just help people as much as possible. In terms of fundraising, we are happily bootstrapped right now, and we're really going to listen to customers and kind of see where do we think the app needs to go. And so we're thinking, sometime in the new year is when we'll reevaluate the fundraising strategy, and ultimately, we will tap into fundraising only when we really think it's going to help us accomplish something discrete. And so for us, that'll likely be unlocking clinicians across the US, clinician referrals. We really think that even though Nirvana is D2C right now, ultimately people go to their doctor to heal. They go when they're experiencing symptoms. So we want doctors to be the one to say, hey, it sounds like you've tried everything. My standard of care is not working for you. Try this, try Nirvana. So that's what we would want to fundraise for, as well as just improving the product and making the AI coach even better.
Super. It's funny. As a VC, I have invested in a number of, just call it, digital device businesses that uh, help us better track and better understand what's going on with our body.
Hmm.
But it sounds as if part of, there's good and bad with that. You
Yeah.
got to know what's going on with your body, and you got to listen to your body, but
Hmm.
also maybe a little too much of it can cause other issues.
Oh
So
yeah.
there's that balance, I assume. Do
Yeah,
you find that
absolutely.
in?
Yeah, no, I think about this a lot. I mean, I used to have many wearables and I was really like tracking focused. And I think for a large part of the population, that's amazing. That's great. It helps people. It helps people sleep better. It helps people like understand their body better. I support it completely. However, for the many millions of people in the world that are really, really in this fear cycle, and that fear cycle is perpetuating their chronic symptoms, I think more information is harmful. Personally, like especially with something like insomnia, right? Like the more you're tracking your sleep, the more you're afraid of your sleep. So for me, I got rid of my wearables. I actually had a really bad night of sleep last night, and the the difference in my reaction after learning the tools that I've learned and what we're building in Nirvana, like the difference in my reaction is night and day. Like I used to wake up with insomnia, having not slept well, and just be like gutted. And my mood was terrible. And I was always trying to optimize for like a nap in the middle of the day or cancel plans. Like my entire identity was around my symptom. And now I don't have that at all. I'm just kind of like, all right, I didn't sleep. I didn't sleep. That's totally fine. Tomorrow's another day. My body knows how to sleep. There's a little bit of like trust. And so I do think a lot of these, apps out there, digital health companies out there that are providing a lot of information, that's not for everybody. In the same way Nirvana is not for everybody. But I think for people who are stuck in that cycle, too much information can be harmful. So we're only asking people to track their symptoms once every 7 days. We don't want them to think about their symptom every single day. That's not the point. Progress is not linear here.
Super. Well, I'm looking forward to trying out Nirvana as
Yeah.
well. It sounds like it's right up my alley. Um, This has been great. I really enjoyed getting to know you during our conversations. And what I'd like to do is invite you back at a later date to discuss your learnings, your findings, the
Yes,
challenges, the accomplishments, so that people can stay up to date with what's going on at Nirvana.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
Thanks.
it's early, it's evolving, so things will probably change, but hopefully for the better and always in the direction of helping people get better.
Sounds good.